Okay guys, welcome to another video on game genres. This time it's the turn of the puzzle genre and how you can target different demographics with puzzle games. Do check out the other videos in the series where I talk about different genres and how video game genres are different from fiction genres like book or film because they're defined by what the player does and not what the characters look like. Right from the off, it's obvious that puzzle games are different from sports, adventure, or strategy games. These genres might contain puzzles, but in the puzzle genre, what the player does is spend most of their time solving puzzles as opposed to doing other things that define the other genres. There are lots of different types of puzzles, and I briefly want to look at the shorter, casual format before digging into the longer, more hardcore format. Casual games tend to be pick up and play, and are often found in mobile games. The mobile game market is saturated with word and match style puzzle games, with the Match 3 format extremely popular. These sorts of games build on the heritage of desktop games like Minesweeper or Tetris. Their challenge lies in the combination of elements like letters, numbers, colours or shapes to create larger patterns. As such, they use assets that are easy to customise and to use in different combinations. There doesn't tend to be one single solution in these sorts of games, rather they allow the player a great deal of what is called agency, the ability to act on the game, for relatively small input. It's easy to understand input to agency ratios if we take a look at a game like FIFA. Agency means that the player can do lots of different things. In FIFA they can run, pass, shoot, clear, dive, and a whole host of other things. It's different from something like an endless runner, but knowing how to do these things in FIFA requires learning an increasingly complex combination of up to 10 or 11 different buttons on a controller. Now look at a game like Candy Crush. There are 6 different base candies, dropping down to 5 in the new releases, with a further 10 special candies. The player can swap pairs of them around and tries to match 3 in a row, hence the name Match 3. There are many different board configurations, but level 1 contains a board that is 5 high and 8 wide. That's 40 candies. Moving 1 swaps it with another. If you get a line of 3 that match, the game drops more candies in. You can quickly see how a lot of combinations come from a relatively small number of base candies. But all the player needs to learn to control this game is to tap or swipe with one finger. And they can tap on any of the 40 candies in play, swapping one at a time in any combination they like. This is a high degree of agency for a fairly low input. Puzzle games thrive on this system. The player spends a lot of their time thinking and less of their time doing.
All right. So this is where the turn-based stuff comes in. I've got to figure out what the right order is to kill these snakes.
It's pretty much the exact opposite of the Twitch shooter genre. And this difference allows us to discuss some of the differences in the game's demographics, which is that little bit of theory that it's worth knowing about. Demographics are groups that we use to organise people, in this case, players. They can be based around age, race, nationality, sexuality, and gender. Gender tends to be a big one where games are concerned. The puzzle genre is a really interesting genre to study from the point of view of gender. This graph shows the percentage of each game genre that is played by males and females. Males are in dark blue, females in light blue. Genres like sports or shooter or racing that have a high input to agency ratio tend to be played a lot by men. That is not to say that women don't play these games, nor that they make poor players when they do. And input to agency isn't the only factor in who plays these games. There are dozens of studies that talk about the toxic environments of some male gaming cultures that tend to put a lot of female players off. If we look at the other end, we can see that games that allow for exploration or role-playing tend to be preferred by women, and that casual puzzle games, Sims, and finally Match 3 genres are the most popular with women. In this case, of the last 3, the input to agency ratio is quite low. It comes back to the idea that most of the hard work done to succeed in these genres is done in the thinking. But there does seem to be fairly compelling evidence that female players like exploration, story-based drama, and puzzle elements in their games. So how does this help you as a designer? Well, if your target audience is women and girls, building these elements into your games seems like a good place to start. Let's take a look at some more hardcore puzzle games that do this and those that don't. Myst is often seen as the grandparent of modern puzzle games. The game itself takes place across 4 self-contained mini-worlds, or ages, on the island of Myst. The first convention of puzzle games laid down by Myst is that the game should explain very little. Figuring out what you can and can't do, how much agency you have, is done through exploration and experimentation, with only minimal hand-holding by the game itself. Players are often shown where they need to go, but given very little help in how to get there.
What we found when we started watching people play is they were overwhelmed. They needed a little bit more, a first goal to kind of get them into the story. And so that's where the note on the path came from. We put that note that said, go to the 4-chamber. They had to find the 4-chamber on the dock.
Myst is a story-based game that contains a high degree of exploration and, of course, puzzle solving. It includes combination puzzles, pattern puzzles, and number-based puzzles. In an age when video games often meant this, and being a gamer often meant this, Myst offered a generation of women and girls who don't want to be this.
We're not watching a freaking movie!
Or do this. The chance to play games. This may help to explain its appeal with female players today. But the game and genre is also popular with older audiences who have less desire for the sorts of competition-based play that younger audiences crave. Another game in the mould of Myst is Portal. In the game, the player controls Chell, who's trying to escape from GLaDOS.
Well done. Remember, the Aperture Science Bring Your Daughter to Work Day is the perfect time to have her tested.
Having female protagonists in your game is another way to appeal to a female demographic, though these protagonists need to be more than just the embodiment of male characteristics in a female body, a charge that's been made of Lara Croft on more than one occasion. If Myst is the grandparent of modern puzzle games, Portal is the parent. The game sees the player in control of portals that allow them to move instantly from one place to another as they try to escape from a series of fiendishly clever mazes. Solving the puzzle of how to escape is based heavily in understanding the physics of this game type. The player can pick up objects and use them to activate switches. These objects can be passed through the portals, but the player can also move themselves between the portals, in some cases needing to use gravity to build up enough momentum to do so. This is very different from the sorts of play involved in a match 3 game, but, as with all puzzle games, thinking your way out of the problem is key, even if this is done while experimenting with different approaches. Making a good hardcore puzzle game is about having a range of different things the player can do, high agency, with only one solution working in any given context. There is a fair degree of exploration in Portal, but, even more so than Myst, the player is confined to small, self-contained spaces, or levels, in order to do it. Some puzzle games give the player a great deal more freedom, like Rime. The puzzles in Rime tend to be based more around logic and pattern spotting than the physics of Portal, but, like both Myst and Portal, they combine to tell a story in a very visual way. Storytelling in some game genres is often done through cutscenes, text, or audio logs. Even Myst uses videos to deliver some of its story, but Rime manages to tell a story almost entirely visually. And, as with most story-based puzzle games, it's a mystery story. Who is this boy? Where did he come from? Where is he going? Why does it feel like he's been here before? The use of mysteries for puzzle games is not surprising, particularly if we remember that game genres are based around what you do. It's not much of a leap from solving a puzzle to solving a mystery, and it gives the same intellectual satisfaction of having beaten the game, with the solution to individual puzzles giving clues to the overall mystery. A lot of these puzzles involve logic, and involve figuring out the right order in which to do things, such as the right order in which to flip switches, which are a common staple of puzzle games, and fairly easy to code using simple on-off booleans. Take this example from Arndt Jensen's Limbo. There are two switches that control the flow of the rising water. The player needs to figure out how to get across the platform without drowning. As with all good puzzle games, the player can sit and figure it out using logic and then take action, or they can take a more trial and error approach, figuring things out as they go. So, if puzzle games tend to be based around words, numbers, logic, or physics, and things like exploration, story, and female protagonists appeal to female audiences, how do you make a puzzle game appeal to a male audience? Well, one way is to borrow your tone and feel from a fictional genre that is adored by men, the horror genre. In this graphic, men are in light blue and women are in dark blue, thanks Statista. And you can see that while there are some genres that are pretty evenly adored by both genders, there are some genres that are more preferred by women, and some that are more preferred by men. Knowing who you're making your game for is key, as the more you give them of what they want, the more likely they are to fall in love with your game. Games like Inside and Limbo, both by Arndt Jensen, combine a visual form of storytelling, there's no text or dialogue to speak of at all, with a horror tone, setting and story. The gameplay is based around physics and logic, though the control system is kept very simple. The player can move, jump and drag objects. This is a low input, low agency system, but as with other games in this puzzle genre, the hard work consists in figuring out the solution to the puzzle, often through trial and error, which means, in my case, lots of dying. And the deaths are horrific, offering a clear appeal to anyone who likes the horror genre of fiction. A lot of the puzzles in Limbo are governed by simple collider or trigger actions. If the player steps here, they're dead. And the puzzles are sneaky, downright sneaky. But the player's reaction upon figuring it out tends to be, why didn't I see that before? Rather than, well, who's supposed to figure that out? Another legacy of Myst, where striking that sort of balance between too easy and too hard was pretty much perfected.
People are going to cheat or they're not going to cheat, whatever. But if they don't cheat and they get that great feeling of satisfaction, that's awesome. If they cheat and they look at the answer and they go, oh crap, I could have figured that out. We've done our job.
So in summary, puzzle games don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. Though they often use systems of logic, matching, manipulation, or physics, these can be combined in increasingly inventive ways, and the best games very much do. In the next video, I take a look at action games, focusing on shooters, beat-em-ups, and games with rogue-like elements. I'll also be talking about how these games punish players and what counts as fair and unfair punishment in games. See you all then.